In this video, you'll observe a third grade writing strategy group. You'll notice how Emily Sturges, the literacy coach at Wilson Elementary, leads the group through an explain example lesson to highlight for students the quality of narrative mentor text. She then sets the students up to try this work in their own writing.
So writers, we've been working on our personal narratives, and I want to show you today some things that you can add to your writing, okay? We've looked over this piece that Sophie wrote, and I'm going to point out some things that you can actually try in your writing. So we were looking at this, and we have some feelings that Sophie told us. She said my palm was sweating. As a reader, I can really picture that. That's happened to me too. And then another thing that she did is she has some dialogue. Remember, she asks her friends, what game do you want to play? That's another thing that we could try doing. She also has some action. She says we ran to the other side of the arcade.
Yeah.
I can really picture that in my head.
We went.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to show you was she has some inner thinking. Right in this part, she says I thought to myself, we were made to be friends. When authors do that, they're showing us their inner thinking or their inner dialogue. So writers, looking at this, I want you to think what's something you can add to your personal narrative right now? Will you be the writer who talks about some feelings? Will you add some dialogue? What did the characters actually say? Will you be like Sophie and do some inner thinking? What were you thinking?
Yeah.
Or will you add some action? So quickly decide and then start writing. Okay? Bryce, do you know what you're going to pick? Okay. I'll let you think a little bit longer. But let's go ahead. Let's start writing. So Bryce, what's one thing you could add to your writing, do you think?
Filming.
Oh, okay. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Filming because my story is about when it rained hard and the lights turned off.
Oh, I remember that day in the cafeteria. So tell me, rehearse it with me. How were you feeling when that happened?
Kind of scared.
Oh, okay. Had it ever happened to you before, maybe at home, you've experienced that? Yeah. So add that into your story. I was feeling so scared. Maybe you can be like Sophie and were your palms sweaty? Or was your tummy kind of turning? Yeah, add that to your story. Go. Demi, what are you working on?
Working on me and my dad. It's me and my dad in a book.
Okay, so what are you working on to make your story even better? Keep writing. Do you want me to give you some more time? Or you're adding some actions? Okay, show me where you're doing that work.
Well, in this part, I could have added, I got to the sinking with the vegetables.
Oh, so you're kind of doing what Sophie did. She was talking about running to the game, and you're talking about I was walking to the sink, right? Can you add some more details? How were you walking? Think about it and try and add. I'll come back to you in just a second. Hey, what are you working on today? What are you adding
I'm working on inner thinking.
Oh, you're adding some inner thinking. Can you say more about that?
Well, I'm trying to make the character, which is me, think about how if the pool party really wasn't that bad.
Oh.
Or how maybe it's going better than she thought it would be.
Oh, so you might say something and then I thought to myself, this is actually better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Perfect, keep going. Diego, what are you working on as you write?
I'm doing feelings.
Oh, you're working on some feelings, okay. Can you tell me a little bit more?
The feeling I was happy that I went to the plane.
Oh, okay, so you're like happy. How can we explain that so our readers know like exactly how you felt? Like, remember how like Sophie's saying my palm was really sweaty? Like, how were you feeling when you were happy?
Excited.
Okay, can you say more?
I was
Oh, no, that's okay.
I was really so excited that the horses were coming, and they were gonna throw stuff, and I was so excited that I was gonna get to catch them and wear them.
Yeah, so like what were you doing with your body? Were you maybe like smiling? You had like a smile from ear to ear?
Yeah.
Yeah, add that to it. That way your reader knows exactly how you're feeling. Add it to it. Keep going. All right, Demi, did you come up with something? So like you were talking about the walking. What did you add? You were like walking to the sink, so we had some action, right? Do you see another spot where you could add some action into your story? It might help to us on the next page too. Like, where could you add some more action? We want our readers to know exactly what it looked like, right? Like, what does it say here? Your uncle would give the invitations. So could we talk about like how he's gonna do that? Like, how would he hand out the invitations?
He will call some.
Oh, okay. Add that in there. Add that in there. We want to know exactly how he's going to do that. Okay, writers, I'm going to give you like a few more seconds to finish up and we'll come back together.
This is. Can I like it because it was screaming in there?
Yeah, perfect. Add it.
Can I write in the bathroom?
Of course. All right, we're going to come back together. I know you guys are so excited to keep writing, but we're going to come back together in 3, 2, finish up your last spot, 1. All right, put your pens down, get your eyes on me. So, writers, today what we did is we studied someone else's writing and we got some ideas from them. Like, these are things that you can try not only in this story, but any personal narrative that you write. Some things that I want to remind you of is like adding feeling into your writing. You want your readers to know exactly how you felt in that moment.
Yeah.
You can add dialogue. What did the characters really say? You can do some inner thinking. Like, what were you thinking in that moment? And of course, you can always add some action. Like, what did it really look like? Okay? So as we do independent writing today, I want you to think about some things that you can add to your story.
Mm-hmm.